Today, Rinpoche went over the 3 highest higher trainings, with an emphasis on the highest higher training in ethics.
Somebody should be settled to say, Tabadrible Longit ten la Popa, Gigi, Tajiba Tabadrible Longit ten la Popa de la Tenjetabu Koa Duba, the Longitabu Koa Duba Nimadre, Ta Longitabu Koa Duba de la, and then Habasunji Tang, Habasunji Purin, Habasunji Rajin. What thing I will Habasunji Rajin than my Taji Marbe? Yeah.
Okay. So once again, we're looking at Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment, specifically the section Training the Mind, the stage of the path shared in common with beings of medium capacity. When we look at the outline in the text, we'll find 4 categories under that major heading. First, the mental training. Second is the measure of the determination to be free, or the measure of one's renunciation. Third is dispelling misconceptions. And then fourth, ascertaining the nature of the path leading to liberation. So we've gone through the first 3 of those categories, and we're now currently dealing with the section on ascertaining the nature of the path leading to liberation. And when we look at that section, we'll find that there are 2 sections that we find in the outline Lama Tsongkhapa presents. First, we have the basis, or the kind of life which you halt cyclic existence, so the kind of basis needed to halt cyclic existence. And then the second category is the kind of path you need in order to cultivate in order to halt cyclic existence. So after we finish the section on the kind of life needed in order to halt cyclic existence, then you get to the section on the kind of path you need to cultivate to halt cyclic existence or to achieve the state of liberation. And there are 3 categories that are explained in that section. First, the certainty of the enumeration of the 3 highest higher trainings. Second category is the determination of the order of the trainings. And then the third category is the nature of the 3 trainings. So this is, again, the 4th heading in the section on the medium scope, and ascertaining the nature of the path leading to liberation, and then specifically the section on the kind of path needed to cultivate to halt cyclic existence. So Rinpoche ended there. So that's on page 339. I don't know where we're going to go, but that's where we ended. Nicha.
Okay, so we're going to start at
341. Page 341 in the English. Page 268 into 269 in the Tibetan. Rangjin.
What the rules in Samarva? What the Najimata Judu rules in Saimba? Ne Judu would do be Judu ne Shiroj Laba was Jibi in Nabaja said the damage Najimata Judu to be Shiroj Laba Jaguars. What the button to Saimba? Tabatun Rosa do Tal, Habason to what Tengasu, Habason to do Habason Madbe, Sutinji Laba, Labi Sutinji Laba, Labi Tengazi Laba, Labi Shiraji Laba. She don't Habason Sana, Shiribata, you should down, 근데 히도도 강가리 와르스 토모르스 말베
Okay, men that's meaning the la.
Yeah.
Jego mare. Tearing that's now doing the J le labadu.
야
Okay, so we're going to start page 349. It says the nature of the three trainings is in the sutra requested by Brahma. So we're dealing with the nature or the definition of the three trainings in this section. So it says ethical discipline has 6 branches. This is referring to the highest higher training in ethics. Concentration is the 4 blissful abodes. This deals with the highest higher training in concentration. The 4 aspects of the Four Noble Truths are always pure, sublime wisdoms. This deals with the highest higher training in wisdom. So when we look at these 3 highest higher trainings, we've gone through these sections up to the Four Noble Truths, which are the actual highest higher training in wisdom. And if we look at that highest higher training in wisdom in a more expanded way, in a detailed way, we come up with the 16 attributes of the Four Noble Truths, or the 16 aspects of the Four Noble Truths. And that's what this last section of the sutra requested by Brahma is speaking of when it says the 4 aspects of the Four Noble Truths. It's speaking of that. So I just want to see something. So that's what it's speaking of. And I just, when we talk about this sutra requested by Brahma, just as an aside, the reason that Rinpoche is explaining this and saying that this is the training in ethics, this is the training in concentration. When you look in the Lamrim Chenmo, there's different words there. They're not the words we normally use for concentration. Doesn't say tingenzi here. So it's been kind of explained already for us in the translation here. So sometimes when it seems like there's redundancy or why is this explained, it's because there's a different word in the Tibetan here that's not clear what it necessarily is referring to. And then here we're lucky we have it, and this is right. But just want to make that part clear. I think we talked about that last week, and specifically the concentration section. So the 3 highest higher trainings, when we say 3 higher trainings, these are trainings that are in common with non-Buddhist traditions. The Buddhist tradition, when we're speaking specifically of our trainings, or the Buddhist trainings, we say the highest higher trainings. So when we say highest higher training in ethics, highest higher training in concentration, highest higher training in wisdom, then that is meaning that those specifically are not in common with the non-Buddhist tradition. But trainings in ethics, concentration, and wisdom are in common with Buddhist and non-Buddhist traditions. Dixon.
아니 툴레 알하비 라바송 고그레 랑젤레야 하비 라바송 고그레 치바 쳔블레야 하비 라바송 고그레 스마르베 tene judeji shayuju shwebeju nejuju nejulana me jude tuleya labason mena nan hala che ga yo maris shaju da shweju da nejuju da nejulana me jude somale no wade labason gogres marbe.
So the three highest higher trainings, or Rinpoche is just saying 3 higher trainings, and as a note, it's implied because we're speaking of it in terms of the context of Buddhism. It's the highest higher. So just making a note of that. We find these indispensable in all forms of Buddhism, whether if it's the hearer's vehicle. We find the 3 higher trainings necessary. The solitary realizer vehicle, 3 higher trainings necessary. The great vehicle, the 3 highest trainings are necessary. And then when we look at the great vehicle tantric teachings and the 4 classes of tantra, whether it's the action tantra, performance tantra, yogic tantra, or highest yogic tantra, all classes of tantra require the 3 highest higher trainings. If the 3 highest higher trainings aren't present, then there isn't an actual tantra doesn't take place. There is no tantra. There is no action tantra. There's no performance tantra. There is no yogic or highest yogic tantra if there are not these 3 highest higher trainings. So we find them indispensable in all forms of Buddhism.
This way. What dang as old telling us what the Uluma. There is Jibunding La Rangaola, Tina, Habasula Tilo, Jeba Jugunas. They may be and Cheryl Hatuntan, Sangel Haba, Chenet, Jilu, ne, Chimichimicos, Chiba and Ju. There is Tazamajo. That they would my ever. Daniel that Judu she said to teach you.
Okay. Oh, okay. The Jibodin Dan Kona. Okay.
Jibunding Rangol Chibaina,
like Kona.
And Habason Raji Jibjogures, Guna Tamares, Jibchia, Little Tomon. What the song there?
Okay. So here it says, so we go to page 342. It says, if I were explaining here the path of persons of medium capacity alone, I would have to give a lengthy explanation of the three trainings. However, since this is not the case, I will explain the trainings in wisdom, insight, and in mind, meditative serenity, in the section on persons of great capacity, and will not elaborate at this point. Thus, I will briefly discuss the training in ethical discipline. So here it's stating, if Lama Tsongkhapa is saying, if this text was just a specific text on the medium capacity, or the stages of the path for beings of medium capacity, and there wasn't anything else in the latter section, and there wasn't any great capacity or great vehicle teachings, then it would require a very lengthy explanation of the three higher trainings. But because there is this latter section dealing with the great vehicle, Lama Tsongkhapa is going to deal with those trainings in that section in detail. So the detail that would be normally given to it if it was just a text on the medium scope will be given in the great scope section. Diksun.
Oh yeah, that didn't matter. Jeba Joguna, they may be Shiro Ladon Shines, Sangel Habane, Jilu, Jibu Chimbi goes Chiban Jews. That doesn't limit to Tenasa. Chuchina Lotun Dudishi Joba Shaws, Chuchin Habala, Fabi Chun Dudish Songins, Joba Shaw. Tala Toma ne Chuji Japan Yatu Sana, Hitapane, Chushu Peva Shade, and Yangal de Bachimbo Les do in Jiro. Chuji ne Gi, Chutaji Tinkiso, Shinla Subi Zawa, Sayimba Tara Zawa, Chomba Tanji. Hodunroa der Gi Chu Tanji Tomandroa was Jaji sending water, Chu Tanji, Jaseno, Debataji Yasunki, Lanchobao, Dibi Ne Tanji Suyu, Paji Dombotabo, and CB Lanyangai, Jasonso, Nyomobi, Dajumbi, Kucha. Nyomo be dajumbo kucha no nyomo be dru doba si ringa so debi chule du samba sheba tan no ngobo luru je jan chine judo mo ju sa jin do ta den ma college no na ma ta ga de chujing pen so do chujing pen O Dala Toma College.
Jagamari, the Kangalo, the Ngelo.
Dala Toma Chudin Japan Yada Sanshi.
That's it.
Chudin Snogi in a pen Yobate, Sanlu Motamba Yina, and the Sandle what the Sanju Payong is. Tushu Pewa Shade, Yangali de Chamberlain do Drangdua. Chudin Gi Chutanji Tinkis was Chudin de Gi Chutanji Rosagi. Genza Nabres, think so. Shinla Subi Zawa, Sayimba Tar, Zawa was 신라 소부터 소가 살 찍으러 사 사와로 살라 되는 신 찍으러 대나진 추진라 되는 기초가 찍으래스 총바 단지에 도만으로 왔다라스 네 총적인 비즈니스 로아다라 기초 단지에 도만으로 와오스 기초 단지에 도만데 어디 추진래스 제진지 제센딩 왔다라 최단지 제센노스 제진 제센시 라이지 제센이 되어 유지로 어때 추진 대나진레스 데바타지다 내송글라 땡줘바오스 추진라 되네 데바가 다투그레 내송기 라가 쥐노그레 쥐투그레 쥐바오 데비네 타지 수유 네 매주도 못하고스 데비네시 네 매기 시도 넘레스 시비냐가 자송소 시비냐가 카렘버든 사자동버든 로고바이나는지 사야타도 로고로데 사야타하고 쳐남드레스 자송소
okay.
녀모비 단조비 천차오스 녀모비자 단조비 천차 오벤세르바 천차오 녀모비 도르 루도비 시 랭하소스 녀모비 도르 어두가 냥하게 제대로다 시 랭하소 마레스가 안에 디비 출리지 삼바 안에 삼바 셰바 당사 어두가 지주잖아
So
yeah.
Okay. So, let's see. Start right here. So we just reread this. Let's see. Okay. So Rinpoche just reread part of this section. However, since this is not the case, I will explain the trainings in wisdom and in mind in the section on the persons of great capacity and will not elaborate at this point. Thus, I will briefly discuss the training in ethical discipline here. So, again, stating that in the great capacity section of this text, 3 higher trainings will be explained in detail, and that's why he isn't doing that at this point. But there's going to be a small abbreviated explanation of the higher training in ethical discipline. In the beginning, thus I will briefly discuss the training in ethical discipline here. In the beginning, reflect repeatedly on the benefits of ethical discipline and develop enthusiasm for it from the depths of your heart. As the great final Nirvana Sutra states, ethical discipline is the ladder to all virtues. It is their foundation, just as the earth is the foundation for plants and the like. Just as a master trader goes first among all traders, so ethical discipline goes first among all virtues. Like the hoisted banner of Indra, ethical discipline is the banner of all the teachings. It cuts down all sins and eliminates the paths to the miserable realm. Since it cures all the illnesses of the sins, it is like a medicinal plant. Ethical discipline is the stock of provisions for the terrible road of cyclic existence. It is the weapon that destroys the afflictions, the enemies. It is the spell destroying the poisonous snakes of the afflictions. It is the bridge to cross over the waters of sin. And then we're going to go over a few different quotes that just show the benefits of ethical discipline. And the first quote is from Master Nagarjuna. It says, ethical discipline, like the ground supporting the animate and inanimate worlds, is said to be the foundation of all good qualities. So if one is able to reflect over and over again on the benefits of ethical discipline, then what naturally follows, that repeated familiarization, is mind generation. As another note, mind generation isn't just bodhicitta. We can say mind generation in this case. We're generating the mind of the training in ethics. So that's an actual generation that takes place, and that takes place by repeated familiarization with the benefits and so forth of the higher training in ethics. And then one will want to, as a result, engage in that pathway, in that practice. So that that's what is meant there. So then Rinpoche went back to the top of the sutra and then went through each line briefly. Ethical discipline is the ladder to all virtues. So this is what, if the virtues were above, ethical discipline would be like the ladder one could climb to those virtues with. It is their foundation, just as the earth is the foundation for plants and the like. So just as the earth is the basis for everything that grows out of it, likewise, ethical discipline is the foundation for all other practices to grow out or to be generated from it. Just as a master trader goes first among all traders, so ethical discipline goes first among all virtues. Like the hoisted banner of Indra, ethical discipline is the banner of all the teachings. So this is like if there's a banner of Indra, God, that was flying. The ethical discipline would be like almost the banner for all the teachings, almost the representation, because that flag is, this banner is the representation of Indra. So the ethical discipline would be like the banner of the teachings, the representation. I think that's a good way to translate it. It cuts down all sins and eliminates the paths to the miserable realm, so it allows us to it serves as an opponent to our misdeeds and the pathways that lead to the lower realm. Since it cures all the illness of the sins, it's like a medicinal plant. So it's compared to medicine. If the sins or non-virtues are being compared here to a disease, and then the ethical discipline compared to medicine. Ethical discipline is the stock of provisions for the terrible road of cyclic existence. So this is like stock of provisions. If one goes on a trip, one needs to have food, and one needs to have drinks and so forth. So it's like what one would carry on a long journey down a terrible road. Here, ethical discipline we carry in the terrible road of cyclic existence. It is the weapon that destroys the afflictions, the enemies. So here, Rinpoche just went over the word here is referring to weapon, and it means like the weapon that you use to destroy the enemy, the afflictions that are our enemies, the enemies. It is the spell destroying the poisonous snakes of the afflictions. It is the bridge to cross over the waters of sin. Dixon. Nyale depi do sar. Loju lapsung yene lung in dekona.
Tangomo ludu je jans, ngubo ludu je jang. The sheting marbe.
Sheting? Oh, okay.
Chin judam ju sajin do. Yenden ku jeten lebasons. Sujin de judam ju sajin dos. Ne tangazu langal ruhi na nyagi na karjen sakon lega jeguro. Sal tenguro. Sal madem do tu marwa. Lega je tu marwa. But najin sujin de 사진 담으래서 달라 때네 요된 건가 책이래서 친네 주담주 사진도 요된 구지된 요된 타지기 지정 땡땡담 주진제 사와래서 지된 라버송 셰단사 어디 대체 다다마든 잡은도와 다 본상의 주비 주례 장스 본상의 주비 주 당자된도 당자 본상의 주비 주례 장 제달 로도 탄지 살아네 때네 주메바네 저와다르 대신 주진 때네 네 추가초 희지 주렘베 나바제 셰송바다 상바오스 셰송바다 상모스 다본랑 주비 주를 어떠서도 제달 로도 탄지 살아 당가서 표면 어디 신갈래 안에 라이스도 두가 신갈래 되는 쪽으로 제달 로도 탄지 살아네 때네 주메 저와 따라서 로도 가서 데라서부터 좀가 살아 때네 주메가 쪽으로 저 부터나 example 저와 따라 대신 주진 때네 추가 주스 추진 사실라 때네 내 가비추 제네다 라동로서 보다 순가 정거레스 가비추 해지 주렘베 lembe ne naba jes niji chu lembe la den wote yenden tu jong wo de song je she song ba tar sa mos wote ba ji ju jana
Rinpoche, the Chin ni Judang Miju Sa Shindu. Judang Miju. The Donagare. Judang Miju.
chen ju da ma ju sa
The
ju
Donagare.
ju sa na roa wa
Jud.
ju sa roa ma ju sa na de ba roa inanda de ba inanda sal den go sal ma de ba
Droa Madroa.
ju sa na roa ma ju sa na ma roa what the taji sajil ten guru
Okay.
what the sunda tin judam ju sajin dos
Okay. So we begin with the quote from Nagarjuna. And this is from the Nagarjuna's letter to a friend. It says, the protector Nagarjuna as well says, ethical discipline is like the ground supporting animate and inanimate worlds. It is the foundation of all good qualities. So ethical discipline, when we look at, so first of all, when we look at the quote here from Nagarjuna, it's like the ground supporting animate and inanimate worlds. I asked Rinpoche in the Tibetan what those words meant, because in a formless realm there's not a found. Anyway, so I asked him what that meant, and he said that it actually, the Tibetan means going and not going somewhere. So if you're going somewhere, you need a ground in order to do that. If you're not going anywhere, you need a ground in order to not go anywhere. So that's what the Ju and Miju in the Tibetan means. It means if you're going somewhere or you're not, or you're staying, or not go. If you're going or not going, you need this ground in order to do that. You need a basis. You need something under you in order to do that. Likewise, ethical discipline serves as that basis that's needed in either case, if you're going or not going somewhere. And it says it is the foundation of all good qualities. So it's the basis that all excellence comes from, that all of excellence, or all good qualities. It's also translated as excellence. And the Tantra requested by Sabahu says, and Rinpoche said that this is in the tantric sections of the pronouncements of Lord Buddha. And it says, just as every harvest grows without a fault in dependence on the earth, so too do the highest virtues depend on ethical discipline and grow by being moistened with the water of compassion. So if someone is working in a field, a worker in a field, and plants seeds, he or she plants them in the earth. If there isn't earth there, it's not possible for seeds to grow. It's not possible for a rice crop to happen. So you need the worker, the farmer, to plant the seeds, and there has to be the seed, and then there has to be earth in order for it to grow. It says, so, too, the highest virtues depend on ethical discipline and grow by being moistened with the water of compassion. So here it's saying that, once again, that the ethical discipline is the basis for all the highest virtues that exist. And then it says that when we grow rice, we also need water. So it says, and grow by being moistened with the water of compassion. So again, that compassion is necessary to increase the ethics, it's saying. Now, again, this is a tantric text, so it's specifically teaching to those who are at a tantric level already. So just as an aside, that's why it's saying that it's mentioning compassion in here, because obviously you wouldn't have to... This great compassion wouldn't be necessary to cultivate ethical discipline in a lower vehicle. So just as a note, that's why we're being specific here about compassion and why it's even mentioned. That was a translator's note.
Yeah. nyemi shindu chedes, chujin kelang, ane masomba ina wate nyemi shira chibures, ane suyu sondu sana gulung la radu chebindo les, susu tabido gulung pa indu le wate yore, ane gulung la radu chebindo les, lali chujin dawate, lali chujin dungayin, chujin denpa dawate, chujin chewa dungayin los, she haba ke lamba te penyen tang nyame nye ki shu so roa song sos haba ke lang na penyen yore nyame yore niga yoba song yore lale churi dawa de so churi songa de dawa yung res lale churi dawa de churi songa de penyen ane dawa yung gore dendro hata me tenzang je taba tuya la sobe penyen chibu yung res lali chudin dawa de lali chudin dunga is chudin la ne masuna an tala tin dunga yung res nga sung sung de jiwa la soba dunga yung res ne chudin demba dawa de chudin demba de la jabu dawa yung res chudin jiwa dunga los ma dudu jen sung ro she haba ke lamba te penyen ta ngami ni ki shu sung ro Okay.
So now it begins to get into more of the benefits of ethical discipline. You should reflect on the benefits of keeping ethical discipline in accordance with the above cited passages. There are very grave consequences for you if you undertake an ethical discipline and then fail to keep it. The Sutra of Beloved Monks says that once you undertake a training, it will proceed in either an advantageous or disadvantageous direction. So this text is in the Vinaya, specifically in the Sutra for the fully ordained monks. So it's in the section on the fully ordained monk's vow, and we find this quote. Ethical discipline of some leads to pleasure. The ethical discipline of others leads to pain. Those who possess ethical discipline are happy, whereas those who break ethical discipline suffer. So if you keep ethical discipline, then the result of ethics, the result of virtue is happiness. But if you fail to follow the ethical discipline that you are supposed to, if you break any of the disciplines that you are supposed to hold, then the result of that non-virtuous activity will be suffering. So those who possess ethical discipline are happy, where those who break ethical discipline suffer. So what this means is the result of ethical discipline is happiness. So it's saying that ethical discipline that one is engaging in results in happiness. And it's speaking of it as a result. It's not saying that, oh, you'll be happy if you're ethical. It's saying that those who have ethics, that behavior leads to happiness. Those who have non-virtuous behavior, that behavior leads to suffering. So it says those who possess ethical discipline are happy, where those who break ethical discipline suffer. And then it's therefore, you should also think about the drawbacks of not keeping to ethical discipline and thereby generate great respect for the training. Okay. So there's also the Sutra of the Beloved Nuns. So there's the Sutra of the Beloved Monks and the Sutra of the Beloved Nuns, and they're for the fully ordained monk and the fully ordained nun. They're separate books. Beicha Ni, Beicha Chipa. No, two separate books, not in the same book. There's two separate books. So in this sentence below the stanza, it says there, again, it says, therefore you should also think about the drawbacks of not keeping to ethical discipline and thereby generate great respect for the training. So by repeated familiarization of the aspects of ethical discipline, the drawbacks of not keeping it, and the excellent qualities of keeping it, then you develop a respect for that ethical discipline by repeated familiarization. Decent.
Decent.
It's not, but.
That Jetal Hobby suit and the Manjanji with such a J with such a J. Jetal Hobby suit Sandua. Jetal Hobby suit over Tenma. Janji with such a J or it. Such a J or Nanga Tambo in the Karinka Lane Runamara. Jetal Hobby Sune. Jean Juge.
Gatsire J?
Tenman Jetal Hobby Sudla Saji J. Janjibi. Jignan that Tamut Hemore. Jetal Hobby Chula. Jetal Hobby Sune. Tuanju Jugeles. Tuanju Jutala J. Meshiba Tuanju Jo. Maguba Tuanju go. Yomomo Tuanju go. Pamaba Tuanju goes. What the Tuanju Juge or
That's it.
What the Jignan that on the second door.
Oh, Nebo.
Ne Tuanju Jugele, Meshiba Tuanju, Meshiba Tuanju, Meshiba to Yobaina, and Tuanju, we had a Meshiga Maruta. Mashiba is also what they nearby to what you good is. Then Meshiba to Tuan nearby you good is. Meshiba to Nebuna, Tati, Nebucaresana, Nebu Shosana, Habanala Tene. Habana Niene Shebra Shaws, what the Habana Ta Galuna in a teenager Gasu you are a Guinean Lojanga you are a Galumala Tin Soja Karina Juro, what to Golo Sheba Shine Temba Shigures, the Jena Meshiba Tuanju good Nebudores. Meshiba Tuanju Nebune Habanam Dene Habana Yen Shiba Shaws, Habana Yen Shiba Shaw, Guinean Labanga Euro, Nade, Niene, Shiba Jigina, and then Meshiba Nebun entered that. Then I should Galungu Haja to the Abiniana, and then Galungu Haja than gay Tuan to Nebun Gores, Meshiba Nebune, Haja na. Nian Shiba Shaws, Meshiba Tuanju, good Nieba Tombre.
Then the Tambo, the giant Sheba Tambo.
The Tombo went the Jet Jidan Urchi.
Okay. Then this J, the giant Sheba J.
Jignan Jidan Urchi.
Okay.
Jito, the Jena
Galung Pai Dumbo Gatsire.
Galum Pai Dumba, the Dumas Jema, the Tumpai Dumba John as a John to Mata.
Chew the Nija.
Chenrezig and Jason Sagaro. Chenrezig.
Nija.
Nasun.
53. Okay.
Guinean Ting Ayoro.
Okay.
What's it then? Do the Shinade?
Okay, thank you. So, this next section, we find Jayan Sheba addressing it by way of an outline. And it states that in this section there are actually 8 categories that he'll get into. So there are 4 causes of an infraction. So there are 4 things that will cause someone to break a vow. So here, infraction, breaking a vow, it's kind of the same. That's what an infraction is referring to. When one breaks a vow, as a remedy, so it says, not knowing the precept, so this is the first cause of breaking a vow. Carelessness, second, disrespect, and various afflictions. So the first category in Jayan Sheba is here. As a remedy for not knowing the precept, so this is the first of the 4 causes of an infraction. As a remedy for not knowing the precept, listen to and understand the precepts. If one, for instance, holds a fully ordained monk's vow, then it's necessary for him or her, for him, to know what those vows are, to listen to them, and then understand what the vows are, so that he knows what vows are needed to be kept. So there are 253 of those that a fully ordained monk has to follow. So he needs to know what those precepts are in order to be able to follow them. So not knowing what they are makes it not possible to follow it, and then this becomes a cause for breaking it if you don't know what the vow is. And then, so for there are over 300 vows that a fully ordained nun has to follow. And then in the case of layperson, whether it's male or female, there are 5 vows that are needed to be kept. So if you have any among these individual liberation vows, it's necessary to know what they are, have heard them, and understand them in order to keep them, in order to not break them. So this is the first category. Diksan. Okay, Diksan. So we'll take a short break. Snack.
Oh yeah, Ta mashiba tongaju gu nyeba tsaje. Ta nyeba pa meba tongaju ko nyeba denere. Pa mebe nyeba nes. Nandu jime na majebi temba dan che to gusung la susu tu jin. Ne lenye kan la juba shebi shejin dan da gan chujong on du she ne Nepala Zimbi Mota Shebatan Jim had Yung Yana Zimbala Cheyobatan Cheyobatan Yeshuji Namila Jine and Pa Kumba Su Labos whatever do the Pa maybe never the red war, Pa maybe never Pa maybe never tap Pa Mabazan as a consumer who's in the Yakayurota. Ngazo wote chu kesha mashiba ne kanju maju jena wote polisil tono marbe ba me benye
chu kesha mashina
chu mashiba ina kanju maju jena polisi ne ga yoro
okay
wote so do gore ba me benye bones landu jene nas lanja dan toja landu jene na majibi tremba dan de lanja in de toja in sheba ji de majibi tremba gures che do gusung la susu to ji lu nga yizon de la susu to ta ji shen ne ba yong do me ta gures ne mi la lu sheba shi bi shin dan sa tremba de shin sa de re do shin dan da gan chu jong on de shen ne ba lan ji bi mo sa sheba sen na wa de ne Dili jena wate jengi chudang geni gare jengi ji lagri nyane zeba ina ngoza sheba se udares ngoza sheba dagan chujung wate dagan wate shene wagan dili jena wate ndriga marajim ngoza sheba wate dili jena chudang geni gare nyabe sanlu tane wate dili ngoza sheba se gares jengi jime do wun nyane Jembi Cheyo Bas, what the Yabatel Chicken, a Jenda, Nal Duja Logrin Hane, what the Zembatel Cheyo Bas, Mosayo, but the Cheyo Bas in the rain water. Cheyo Bat, huh? Nyashu Jemino
Rinpoche? Gogyo Mepechi. Ngutsar Tang Che, the Chapagare.
Mosashi, what the rain water?
Chapagare?
Chapan water, nah.
Okay, the Chapa?
Dagon chu mo de shene Nepal and Zeba Musa Shibades Gendrigen and Digi Marinhan Cheba Ina Musa Yubades Gendrigen Chudan Gedigan Zeba Ina Musa Shibades Musa Shiba
Seldu
what Dangandus Genegan Al Duja Logrenjane Zeba in Cheyo
okay
what the need the and wa Cheyo dance Nyeshuji Mina Nyabata Nyeshuji Mina Nyeshuji Namila Jinesa Nyeshu Diba Mago Sabaina tell it then the small jero.
Leso.
What tell the son, she non pa kumbalazul, hobos, what the pa maybe never the redua, what about Jijana?
Tuche. So, and then Jayan Sheba Sacha, the Nipa? Okay, Gongyal Mepachi. Okay, so this Jie Sacha Chi. Okay, so these four, just real quickly, these four that we're speaking of, causes of an infraction, are the first category of Jayan Sheba's outline. So just to clarify that, this section where the four are explained, that is the first category of the 8 in Jayan Sheba's section. Okay, so now we're on the second, which is carelessness. As a remedy for carelessness, train an attitude such as mindfulness, which does not forget, which ends to adopt, and which to cast aside. Vigilance, which immediately examines the 3 doors of the body, speech, and mind, and understands the right or wrong in which you are engaged. Shame, which shuns faults committed with respect to oneself or the teaching, and embarrassment, which shuns wrongdoing and thinks others will criticize me, and trepidation, which fears the future karmic fruition of wrongdoing. So when we just go back to the top here, as a remedy for carelessness, one needs to think about what one is doing all the time in terms of what one should be doing and what one shouldn't be doing. And then that allows you to remember the behavior you should be engaging in and remember what you shouldn't be doing. So here it says, as a train an attitude such as mindfulness, which does not forget, which ends to adopt, and which to cast aside. So if one is mindful and thinking about this, focused, it could be focused also on what to do and what not to do, then one will naturally not forget it, and then as a result of not forgetting what one should do and what one shouldn't do, one will do what he or she should do and stop doing what shouldn't be done. So that's what is meant here. And what specifically are we saying one needs to be mindful of? And here it's saying one's actions of one's body, speech, and mind. So the activities that one engages in through body, speech, and mind. So it says, which ends to adopt and which to cast aside. Vigilance, which immediately examines the 3 doors of the body, speech, and mind, and understands the right or wrong in which you are engaged. One is being mindful of one's behavior, examining it, and then because of this mindfulness, understands what's right and what's wrong, and then you are able as a practitioner to know what you're doing, and what if you are following the teachings, because you know what to adopt and what to cast aside. And it says, shame, which shuns faults committed with respect to oneself and the teaching. Embarrassment, which shuns wrongdoing and thinks others will criticize me. So here, this is the difference between shame and embarrassment in the Buddhist context. And they translate these interchangeably. So I don't know how you know when you're reading English which one it is, because they use it interchangeably a lot. So shame is specific to knowing what you're supposed to be doing, what to adopt, and what to cast aside. And because you know that, you cast aside the faults because you have this sense of shame. You have this sense of awareness of oneself, and that's it. And Rinpoche also mentioned, if one is ashamed, one is aware that he or she is not doing something right. So in this case, if one would be ashamed, if one knew what to adopt and what to cast aside, and then didn't do that, one just adopted what one should be casting aside, then this would be, someone would feel this sense of shame. So this is what shame means, and also when one is acting in a way that is mutually exclusive with the teaching. So here it's saying it's not just faults committed to oneself, but also the teaching. But the way Rinpoche explained it was really not engaging in negativity, knowing that oneself, knowing that you shouldn't engage in negativity, that you shouldn't. You know for yourself that you shouldn't, because you've known what you should and shouldn't do. And you don't act in a way that is mutually exclusive with the teachings, because you have this sense of shame and not shamelessness, because you would act in a way that was mutually exclusive with the teachings if you didn't have shame. So, but because you have this shame, you work within what the teaching says to do. You don't do what is mutually exclusive with the teachings. I'm sorry if I mixed that up words-wise, but basically it means that you yourself know what you should adopt and what you should cast aside. You have a sense of shame, so you do cast it aside, and then with respect to the teaching, you act in accordance with it. So that's what in the Tibet it means. And then it says, embarrassment, which shuns wrongdoing and thinks others will criticize me. So embarrassment is when you think what others will think of you because of what you're doing. So that's how embarrassment differs from shame. Shame is more personal, internal, and embarrassment is because of what you think others will think. Shame is what worried about what you think about yourself, and embarrassment is you worrying what you think others think about you. So that's a simpler way to put it. Which shuns wrongdoing and thinks others will criticize me. And trepidation, which fears the future karmic fruition of wrongdoing. So also a sense of fear, because of knowing that if one engages in non-virtuous activities, this will lead to suffering. This will lead to the lower realms of cyclic existence. So one has a sense of shame because one knows what one needs to adopt and cast aside. So one adopts the behaviors that are necessary and acts in accordance with the teachings, and a sense of embarrassment allows you to engage in these virtuous activities because of not wanting others to shun you, worrying what others think of you, and a sense of fear because of knowing that these non-virtuous activities will lead to suffering of the miserable realms and so forth. So this is how one gets rid of carelessness. This is the opponent to carelessness. So this is the second cause of breaking a vow. Okay.
Ta sumba magubi nyebo ne tenba dang di jeba dang samba sumba sheba nala kuba shaos tenba sena shajaman buddha tabuda marbe tenba je di jeba sena wade swanji ki jeba ane buddha lo so mar lo tin ne tenba dang di jeba ane swanji ki jeba yoro ta gnyel jeba nga yoro glung lo de glung dang glung ma zul jeba yodro ta jeba dang samba sumba sheba chuju samba sumba sheba na ko ba shaos ko na ane ma go ba de nyeben do gro a taba dru ma me shezuna drenji ju lo nyeben do do ta ma ba tenba na ti jeba samba sumba sheba na ko ba shaos ko ba yo ba ina ane ta la ma go bi nyeben do gro.
Okay, and next is the remedy for disrespect, which is a cause of afflictions. As a remedy for disrespect, have respect for the teacher, his rules, and your fellow practitioners. So here, this is saying to have respect for the teacher. So the Dumba, the Shachatupa. Okay, Tuche. So here, the teacher is referring to Shakyamuni Buddha, because that's why it's capitalized here, the teacher. It's referring to Shakyamuni Buddha. his rules are referring to the vows that Buddha Shakyamuni set forth. So the various behavioral standards that the Buddha stated. So in the case of the layperson's vow, the Buddha stated that there are 5 precepts. It's kind of like the law that Buddha made, the rule. And so these rules, Rinpoche said Ching, which is like a law, the law of the land, of the country, the law of the Buddha Dharma. So these are the laws that Buddha set forth. And then it says, and your fellow practitioners. And this is referring to Dharma friends. So it's similar to this analogy we always make of the rope and the snake. If you know that a rope is a rope, this serves as an antidote and an opponent to thinking that it's a snake, or mistakenly thinking that it's a snake. Likewise, if you analyze these things and you know what is and what isn't, then you're able to act non-mistakenly. And just like when you know that the rope is a rope, then you can non-mistakenly believe that it's not a snake and know that it's a rope, because you know what it is. Like if you know your vows, then and you know what they are, then there is not a mistake. So our friend's not a snake. Digsun. Lesson. So now it speaks of the opponent for the afflictions, or the remedy for the afflictions. As a remedy for various afflictions, examine your mind and energetically apply the remedies for whatever afflictions predominate. So when one is dealing with afflictions, you deal with the biggest ones first, or the worst ones first, the largest, the most dominant afflictions. So if there's an antidote or an opponent that the Buddha has set forth for all of the afflictions. So for instance, if we look at the 3 poisons, if one has a bigger problem with, or one has a predominance in terms of attachment. So if one has a bigger problem with attachment, then meditation upon, it's translated a lot of different ways, Midupa, ugliness, could be dirtiness, impurity. So this then serves as an opponent to attachment. As an opponent to anger or hatred, one meditates upon love. So by meditating upon love, familiarizing oneself with love, one can get rid of hatred or aversion. And then if one needs to abandon ignorance, or as predominance of ignorance in one's mind, or worse problem with ignorance, then meditation upon dependent origination serves as the opponent to that. So all of the afflictions have opponents, and one should apply remedies to the afflictions that predominate, or that are the worst first.
What this way?
Sorry.
What the Nyamuma Tuanju, Bame Tuanju, Meshiba Tuanju go, what the shit, what the Changachi, whatever the Changachi down with it.
So that completes the first category of Jayan Sheba's outline, and it deals with the 4 causes of an infraction: not knowing the precept, carelessness, disrespect, and various afflictions.
Niba, what the Niba than Marita Niba. Niba Garsa, Tomane, Magubalam Bebadansa, Tomana what the Jun to Susu Jilmayomala, Maguba Kechivares, Tolul Taba Maguba Kechivare, Nakuina Truguro, Tomane, Magubala Beba Tetere, Tata Membeba, Toma Mebane, Numobala Subi Junji Magubala Begores, Junji Magubala Tata Membeba. The Zhang Lin Gayan, Jun Chung how to sound us, and then you about the Chung the Tungu Kuna out in or the San Tabaina, and Yakayoris. How to sound us, Jeba Nala, Bayan Sujubanes, Buddha Jeba Ting, Jeba Nala Bayan Sujubane, Dungan Baji to this, Telaten Dungan Ungres. Sanji Jeba or the children of the Kayo Marsan Bayan Jebaina, but Telaten Dungan Ungres, Dungan Baji Tote, Lonanji Les, Kanji Tumba Tanti, Kanji Tumba, Tuji Tembalas, Kanji Tumba, Tumba Tuji Tembala, and Yawa Sensi, Jonze Dashena, Tenetele. Dungan Jawa to Chitse Tebe Ami Tenyajin Dana Lale Jabu Tsechen Dena Langa Cheba Tumenjoro Tobi Galon Chujin Chumin Deshena Tunu Dojoro Ilin Dalojin, Sheson Bataros, Sheson Bataro, the Niba de Jigna Niba Tere, Tatuan and Yabat to Kangatomini in the Susul Maguba, Sadoji Warres, and the Sadoji Ware, Tata Membeba, and Tatuan Chuchun, the out in Jerison, Payan Jebaina, Chongwan Han Sana, Jebanala, Payan to Jubanes. Dungan by Dungan Ungres, Susan to Sana Lonajele, Shaman Buddha, Lonajele, Kaji Tumba Tuji Tembala, and Yawa Senshin, Johnson Dashibas, and what the Chuchon is on the Payan Shebaina, then the Tele, Dungan Jama Tus, Dungan Ungres, Pensi Jebe, Ami Senajins, Pensi Jebe, Ami Senajin. Dala Lale Jabi Tsejan Dena Langa Cheba Tumenjoro Tubi Kalun Chumin Dashena Tonu Ilin Dalojins, Pujiagon, the Sheson Bataros Ota Lonajele, Kanji Tubi Tuba Tuji Tembala Ne Bayans Koyang China Ne Bayans Johnson Dashena. Tele Dungan Jean to Dungan Ungres, Tunsi Jebe, Ami Senajins, Tunsi Jebita, Shinda Jeba in the Tichigil Shindaji, County Agiment, Ami say, Shin Amas again the County Dobris,
Mango.
Penset Jebe, Ami say, Penset Shinda Jilea, Shin Chimada Jeba, and Jeda Jeba, Cook County Agimento. Ami Senajins. I miss Magos win Amo. Angel Calado.
Mango.
Mago and way. I mean Senajins. Then the Lajabi Tejan. Dena Langa Cheba, 2 majors. And the Uji Jabuge, and the team what the shit judgment gave by Inaya. Coco what the Neba Meba on cigarettes. Ko Jedal Neba the Tentijana, Red the Sanji Kalindena what they no Ragamaris. Chechen and Dena Langa, Cheba 2 majoro. To be Kalun Chimi Deshena. Don't do early Dalajins, don't do Joro, early Dalajins, no early Damaso, Pajamarbe, no early Nama, no early Namaso, what they do to this woman. 나 공자가에나 지자부나 지나 대구나를 신도나 좀 해도 안고 야만도 용고들다고 있어다 안고 냐마지 롱랑 그 가리나 산지가 되는 신체면 수스갈라고 해서 신도 바버스다 신도 바자들래 안고 신체로 다신 제야도 신데데 디 나미들고 롤리지는 롱고리 신도 여긴 질제버스 얼린다로 또 보자고도 Yeah.
Okay. So, reflections predominate. Okay, so that section again is the first category of the outline of Jnana Sheva. Now we get into the second category. Those who fail to make an effort in this way, who follow the rules in a lax fashion, thinking that even though they have transgressed, it is merely a small fault, will gain only suffering. For as the exegesis of the discipline says, those who take lightly and slightly transgress the teaching of the compassionate teacher thereby come under the power of suffering, just as one who cuts a grove of small bamboo and spoils a whole grove of mango. Here those who transgress the king's pronouncements would not be punished for a few such transgressions. But they transgress improperly the edicts of the sage, they would become animals, as did the Naga Elapatra. And Rinpoche, the Yanjer, the Sheen, the Dondagare, the Sheen, the the Dondagare.
Loli namas lol chenen wol shinu jiten lol juro.
The Yomare. The Long, the
Non se tebirbe.
Kabiore. The Nangla, the the Sheen. Let's go. The Shintu, Dang Shin, the Lung.
Pensi tebi one pensi tebi roa.
Lung Nam Jele.
Pensi tebi ami tsenya jins.
There.
Pensi tebi.
The Donagare.
Te jarul shinda momo yoba jigil ami tsesaj melo.
Okay.
Jarul shinda jeba ina te kanu gres. Wotenda bres, wotte sonda gdote. Ang so the shinda chene ang kang maro te jenda jmendo ha.
They indicate the Shin Detsi Yushu then Am Kanga Rugudu.
What the jinjir that ne
Garshine.
what the kolne no ta.
Okay. All right. Uncle. Okay, so now we get in to the actual quote from the exegesis of discipline and the meaning. So those who take lightly and slightly transgress the teaching of the compassionate teacher. So here, as we said before, Buddha almost gave us laws that we follow, laws that we need to abide by. So the laws are what we should not lightly and slightly transgress. Slightly transgress. So what that means is what it says above here, is that we shouldn't think that it's merely a small fault. We shouldn't think that, we've only done something very small, it's really no big deal. It only slightly transgresses the law of Lord Buddha. So the compassionate teacher here is referring to Shakyamuni Buddha in this case. So it's saying those people who think that just engaging in a little bit of the behavior that Lord Shakyamuni said not to, thereby come under the power of suffering. So the result of this behavior, even though seemingly small, is suffering. And then it says, just as one who cuts a grove of small bamboo and spoils a whole grove of mango, here those who transgress the king's pronouncements would not be punished for a few such transgressions. So I asked Rinpoche, maybe I'll understand it later. He's saying that it reads clear what it means, but I don't understand. Just as one who cuts a grove of small bamboo and spoils a whole grove of mango. I don't know. Here, those who transgress the king's pronouncements would not be punished for a few such transgressions. But were they to transgress improperly the edicts of the sage, they would become animals, as did the Naga Elapatra. So it's saying that there's the story of the Naga Alapatra, and what this story is that there was a meditator who, every time he would get up from his meditation cell, would hit his head on a tree that was growing there, and it kept happening over and over again. And he knew that the Buddha's law was that he didn't cut down trees. So one day he became very angry and said, I just don't care. I'm going to cut this tree down because it's nonsensical to keep having it hit me in the head. So he cut the tree down. And the result of this transgression was that he was born as a Naga with a tree growing out of his head. So this is the story of Elapatra. And it shows how just a small non-virtue, those are, as a note, secondary vows, as a small non-virtue, that small non-virtue led to an entire rebirth as a being with a tree growing out of its head. So it's just showing the kind of weight of our misdeeds and their consequences. So that's the story of the Naga Elapatra. It looks like it reads that it's against the law to cut this a small grove of bamboo, and then you wouldn't necessarily. It says here, those who transgress the king's pronouncements would not be punished for a few such transgressions. So basically, it's saying that even though when you break the law in a very, very small way, you might not be punished. But if you break the Dharma law in a very small way, then the punishment will be very severe. So that's what it means, and that's what Rinpoche summarized it as meaning. So that's what it means, and that's the story of Elapatra. It was born as an animal, specifically a Naga. Okay.
Sumba teyu na nye dunga maguba lambe je yuzen teyi shina tunga to suku maguba beya de kechibures ne maguba la bejins maguba la bejin kedi jalu kuba ina ya penya chemma ya ba menyo ba jalu kuba ina ta ka ye mara sa jaju mares mejuba tunga ta diba shijube shijula Cheta sumba beba shawos, ne tonga shijubi tsudan, deba shijubi tsudu zulo wade, tongsha noya wadanege, ne swanji ki tsenga draya, wadu su drana deba tandagarwa, wadane cheguru sonda insare. Teyo na nye dunga maguba lambe jins, maguba lambe zon cheguru, kete kueba ina, jima nyaba manjuba, tonga dan debi shijula, Cheta sumba beba shawos, and then I told Jabba Maguba Jegura, Kuna Chun Trigger, Tendabu Ches, example. Beba shawos, Tambi Shuba les, Susan to the Tambi Shube, Sajik to Jerawa, Labalan Tembasha, Chudin Java, Tingas Laba to Zinjero, Telan Hin and Tensha, Sazaji waters, Shene Poma. Shene bon majashins, Chudin Lanza to the Bonju Mar Sugi Shehan, Shi Meja. Tadu Neden, Nebaja, Doalan Juba She Dansa. And the Chudin Yandaba, Tempi Doles, and the Chudin Yandaba, this Galum Pai Sudan, Galum Pai Sudan, Galunta, Sudan Teji Shewa and Lai, Chudin Yanshibin, Tata Mayino. Teji Shershena, Sudan Teji Shevene, Sendeni Joa Seban Juji, Chujin Yanshi Shebene, Joa Mota Jaibato, Zedan Teshin, Dawabon, Nabatua, Chenmo Yasun Juros, what the Sotagundol, Pai Sotagundo, Chujin Adaba Debin Doles, Galunta, Sudan Teji Shevane, Chujin Sune, Sudan Ten Sheba Inaya. And Kayo Mares, Susan Tesh Shewan Lais, Chujin Yanshin Shewane, 네 시비네 대다 많이 놓스 주체 가르스나 대지 실시나 수도 대지 시유네 수도 대지 시와이나 천디 지와세바상레 젠카요 말스 천디니 지와세바 주지 주지 양신 시비네 지와 모차 제이바도 지와 모차 제이바도 봉자 모차 제이바도 리단 대신 도와본데 나버 동안 참 양수 용왕 조로스 요로 시den지다 제데 가자와 따르 수다 뒤데 송아샤오스 와드송도 어떻게 주나
Okay, now we get into section number 3. Moreover, as the Buddha decreed in the sutra on having pure ethical discipline, hold on. It's at the top, I'm sorry. Therefore, number 3 starts here. Therefore, strive not to be polluted by faults and infractions. However, if you should become polluted by these, do not heedlessly ignore such sins and infractions, but strive to redress them in accordance with the Buddhist teachings. As the sutra requested by Brahma says, rely upon the trainings, undertake them earnestly from heart. Do not give them up later or break them even to save your life. Always maintain them diligently and engage in the discipline. Moreover, as the Buddha decreed in the sutra on having ethical discipline, using reasons you should keep your ethical discipline even at the risk of your life. O monks, to lose your life and die is excellent, but to ruin and lose your ethical discipline is not. Why? Losing your life and dying expends only... It's excellent, I gotta look at that. Expends only the lifespan of this rebirth. But if you ruin and lose your ethical discipline, you will experience a great downfall, separating from your lineage and giving up happiness over 10 million lifetimes. Give me one moment. I'm sorry. Something. Lose your ethical discipline is not. To lose your life and die is excellent.
근데 되게
the get true ire.
Yeah.
The NGK the long the golong pai do
수다금도
suta the long the tingenzi do yomare the sutar do the long the tambo shiloka the tsik tambo the golong gelong dasotang deshing shiwa
라이스
then the NGK ngatsu shina shira yabudu
제가 어때 수도 되지 쇼네 주진송네 수도 되는 쇼네 야브레스
ale tsuchimyuna
주진송네 수도 되는 쇼와 있나야 야브레스 야
ale shina yene tsuchimyuna yabudu.
야브레스
Okay. So here, this is supposed to read that if you lose your life and have ethical discipline, then it is excellent. That's what the meaning of that line is. Not dying is excellent. It's saying that if you have this ethical discipline and you were to die, this is excellent because what comes next won't happen. It says, why? Losing your life and dying expends only this lifespan of this rebirth. But if you lose your ethical discipline, you will experience a great downfall, separating from your lineage and giving up happiness over 10 million lifetimes. So that won't happen if you die with ethical discipline. If you die without it, the consequences are very severe. You're giving up happiness for 10 million lifetimes. You're giving up your lineage, your ability to keep your spiritual continuum intact. And the word lineage here is referring to your spiritual continuum of teachers. It breaks that and makes it so you no longer have that and have to have a new later. So that's the meaning of that. You should think, if this need to keep my ethical discipline at all costs were not the case, then shaving off my hair and donning monastic robes was pointless. Tingenzi do lei lama son. La son. Tingenzi do la son.
Sambi shubi do le.
Sampi shubi do.
Sambi shuba le. Habalan temba sha.
Oh, that's good. And then it going back up, I just forgot like two things. Vitsar. Then it Tingenzi, 272. I'm trying to go back and forth here. I apologize. Tingenzi di Jewa then Chu Loma song a Sampa. The Tingenzi gi Jebole.
Tingenzi Jebole season 2.
Ngay Sampa you Chu Lama song. So just going back up to the sutra requested by Brahma, it says rely upon the trainings. This is the highest higher trainings that one should undertake, not give up, not break them even if it cost one's life. So always maintain them. So I don't know if I did or not, I'm sorry. But if I didn't, those are the couple of points Rinpoche made about that. Okay, Deeksan.
Deeksan. Yeah. Then the Sotagundo. Children damba dole glunda Sudan Teshuan Lais. Children's one of Sudan Tenashana Outres, Abbot. Children Yashi to the Mayeno. Jusan Carresana. Teji Shershena.
Lesso.
Sudan Teji Shayune. Sendini Jawa Seban Juges.
Lesso.
Sendi Jawa Sebazanres.
Lesso.
Chudin Yashin, Shebene, Jawa Mota Jaibaton, Ritan Teshi.
Lesso.
Waponte, number 2 Chabanyan.
Lesso.
Jawa Mota Jalakazile.
Boomja. 10 million.
10 million.
Lesso.
Jawa 10 million.
Lesso.
Number 2 Chabanyan Sunyuan Jurosa. She danced the Jit, down the ten Sundus, Sanjig, danced the Jit, Kaja or Terror, Sudan due to Swan Shawos. Yeah.
Kabarka.
Swan Shaw, the Jolu, the Chenye Battle Kaima.
Sumba.
Jibat and the Jibat and the Mati Tezudo. The Maina. That tradition, Gumi Jambane, Tomato to Samba Shate, Tingan the Jabolis, Tingan Jabolis.
Oh, okay.
Tingan the Jabole, Sanji Demba de la Rojone, Debi Lena Shinto, Cheverche, Nodandula, Kimbun de Shishin, Jean dans Pelan, Shinta Nalacha, quand la Rabi Nedin, Member non. Tadaki ne Chishir, good, Sheson Bisharos, or what about Sumba Sandre?
Rinpoche, the Jipa Sumba.
Sumba.
The Sumba, the Kanga. Okay. The Shupido, the Kanga.
Sumba.
Okay, Gonga Mepichi. Okay, so all of these are still number 3 in the Giant Sheva's category. You should think, if this need to keep my ethical discipline at all costs were not the case, then shaving off my hair and donning monastic robes was pointless. For as the King of Concentration Sutras says, the Tingenzi the Le Lung Lapsuen.
Tingenzi Jabul the Sundua. Sanji Temba de la Rosan. Sanji Temba Rosan Mog Nanas Lagumala. Mog Nana Rosan. Dibi Lena Shintu Shubashis, Diba Momusana.
Lesso.
No, and then no Chabaji, Rula Chabaji, Raisa, Rula Chabaji, Hibun Dushins, Juntan Tatan, what the trade on, what the Sul Chabajine. Pelans and the Baji Longu Laguna, Shinta Nala Chas, Shinta, to do motor manager of Shinta. Shinta Nala, Kala Rabi, Nadem Nam, the Daki Jishan Wood is 내가 어디서 그 가르치는 그자타고를 수지 마좀 자스 패도 바르스 시에송 비셔로 어디바디 송바래.
That's so. So, for as the King of Concentration Sutra says, after you have renounced the world and gone forth into the Buddhist teachings, you engage in sinful actions and attach to mounts, oxens, chariots, have the idea that wealth and grain are essential. Why did you make no effort to train in anything? Why did you, who make no effort to train in anything, bother to shave your heads? So here, this is being presented to those who are ordained, to the ordained monks and nuns. So you have renounced the world and gone forth into the Buddhist teachings is referring to becoming ordained. So you who have become ordained, but still engage in non-virtuous actions and are attached to, it says, mounts, oxen, and chariots. So attached to your horses, attached to your oxen, attached to your chariots. So there aren't cars. So the fanciest thing you could drive, Rinpoche said, was a chariot. So attached to your chariot, have the idea that wealth, so Rinpoche said money, and grain, like rice, Rinpoche said, are essential. Why did you make no effort to train in? Why did you who make no effort to train in anything bother to shave your head? So what was the point of shaving off your hair? Shaving off your hair isn't going to further you on the path. So shaving off your hair isn't going to further you on the path, isn't going to change you. It's the actual keeping of the vows. So what was the point of even going forth if you're not going to keep the vows? The point of going forth is to keep the vows. What was the point of doing that and shaving your head if you're not going to? Digsum. Okay, so we're going to end there. And we're going to end there. Concluding monologue. You all listened so well. Thank you. Yes.
I just wonder, is this regarding any person in like the human realm, or is this specifically to monks and nuns that have taken vows? Is this section addressed to?
Well, the sutra is just they're addressing the community. Rinpoche, the Lamrim Chenmo, the Kanga, the Lung, the Galung dang, Galung mai dang, Galung pai, Geshe shade. Genye dang, Genye mayimba, Chipa, Kongichiwa. The Natsu de Kanga ke Chempo, the Chipa, Natsu. Okay, so even though this section is, the quotes are addressing, the community, it's the same for everyone, Rinpoche said. Okay? Concluding mandala offering, dedication, prayer. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. Dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losang Drapa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri and likewise Samantabhadra as well. Whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the three times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. In that pure land surrounded by snowy mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness. All-powerful Abbot Tenzin Jatso, may you stay until samsara's end. Pray for the long life of the precious Khensur Wandak, upholder of scriptural and realizational doctrines, the spiritual friend who trained extensively in the 5 great philosophical texts, exceptional wisdom and perseverance.